Hey, I'm Courtney Brooke, and this is Hustle for Happiness podcast. We are all on this journey to find happiness, and let's face it, it takes work. And honestly, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. This podcast is dedicated to helping you navigate life and cut through the noise. As a certified life coach, recovering perfectionist, and survivor of the foster care system, I'm all about keeping things real. With my unique outlook on life that is truly infectious, we cover everything from achieving happiness and optimal self-care to stories of those sharing their wisdom and expertise. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Now, let's get started. All right. Welcome back, you guys. I am so excited to be back in the studio. I have been in Wyoming, not recording, but just in Wyoming, working my little butt away on coaching. And I'm actually thinking about going back to school for my master's in mental health, which is something really exciting for me to even think about and to even push myself. School has actually never been something I've been so amazing at. I actually have to work like twice as hard because I am just not a fast learner in terms of comprehending and understanding things. And so, yes, it scares me, but yes, it excites me because it advances my coaching. I can be a better therapist, counselor, all of the things. But I'm putting my goals out there and I'm manifesting it to you guys right now that I want my own wellness practice. It's been on my mind lately. It excites me when I think about having my own facility to help people, to teach them, to guide them. It's super exciting to even think about. So I've been talking to James about that specifically in terms of like, what are my next steps? What do I want to do in the next 5 years? You know, we don't have kids right now. And I'm not saying we do want kids or don't want kids, but I just don't know our next 5 years. And we don't have kids right now. And so for me, it feels kind of like the sweet spot where I can be super selfish in a good way, but super selfish with my time in terms of like, what do I want to do in the next 5 years? And so I've been working with James's therapist and talking about like my next steps. Where should I go get my master's? Where should I get my PhD? Yes, a PhD is so on my mind, by the way. Why not shoot for the stars? That's totally how I live my life. Also, if it scares you, you got to do it, right? And so going back to school is just one of those things where it was never just an easy thing for me to get. Actually, I've always had to work at it, but I'm not going to let that stop me. But this episode is such a fun one because, I get asked a lot, how have you lost all this weight? How are you staying so in shape? Or even, how do you do all the things you do in your day, Courtney? Like, I just don't understand. And so that being said, this episode is really just how to embrace being sober curious, because removing alcohol and eliminating alcohol has done all of those things for me. It's helped me get more time back in my day. It's helped me keep the weight off. It's allowed me to stay super freaking focused. And I'm not kidding you. I used to, not saying I was a binge drinker, by the way, for those tuning in, but just being more intentional with my time. And when I do choose to drink, I realized that when I was cognizant of when I was drinking or how often I was drinking, or even when I planned when I was drinking, it almost was even more fun for me because I was being intentional with the decision to drink. And so the topic today is just how to embrace being sober curious. Really, what is sober curious? It's this, some of you might have seen me talk about it briefly, but I also wanted to just live the life of being sober curious before even bringing it to your guys' attention, bringing it to the podcast. I like to try things out before I even bring them to your attention. I like to research. And so I've done that. It's been a year since I started my sober curious journey. And so the term sober curious, what does that even mean? I'm just going to read it from the blog post I did. It's sober curious is a term that refers to a growing trend of people who are curious about the benefits of sobriety or who are exploring a more mindful and intentional approach to their alcohol alcohol consumption. So basically, the goal is just to reduce your alcohol and take breaks from drinking or abstain from alcohol altogether. Now, I did 6 months off last year. For those of you who are just tuning in, James and I went through a really tough time. Not our relationship or anything with us, but the business, one of the businesses, specifically his businesses, was taking a hit post-COVID, caused a lot of stress in our relationship. And for me to be that partner, I really didn't want to drink. I found that when I did drink, it would be too much stress, emotional drinking, emotional eating, not really thinking about what I was doing. And honestly, the hangover scared the crap out of me. And so I took 6 months off, and it all started with 75 hard. If you guys don't know 75 hard, I've done it 3 times. I'm very passionate about it. I totally believe in like removing something completely and to find that balance. That's what I did. So I did 75 hard. That's about 2.5 months of no drinking. And I felt really, really good. And I didn't really understand what that meant to like live life without alcohol. Like it was just a fun thing for me all through college. Oh, let's go out and get a drink. Oh, you want to meet up for happy hour, or you want to go to brunch, or in James and I's case, we'd be going to all these dinners. And the first thing I would order is a glass of wine, a martini, a glass of champagne. Like that was the first thing I did. And it was almost a habit. And so I started to notice this within myself. I was like, it's kind of becoming habitual, and my social anxiety would creep in. And so during this time, not only did I want to be a good partner for James during the stress of one of the businesses, I felt that I had to remove alcohol to show up, not only for James, but for myself. I started to think like, oh my gosh, what would I do if I didn't have alcohol in these business dinners? And I was like, oh my gosh, this scares me. Meaning like, oh my gosh, I probably have a little bit of a dependency socially towards alcohol. Another thing is I really just wanted to I needed more time, to be honest. I needed more time in my day. And I felt like alcohol was the only thing that I had excess in my life bringing me down. Now, I didn't cut it out altogether, which some people do during Sobercurious. But if you look at the word sober and curious, it's just being curious about life without alcohol or eliminating it less. So that's what I did. I took a 6-month hiatus. Back up though, 2 years before I did start 75 hard. I was unhappy with my body. I noticed that I was drinking socially. A lot of my friends were just around socially drinking. And I was just like, something's got to give. So I started it 2 years ago. I kept doing it each year, 75 hard. Last year, specifically, I took a 6-month hiatus. So what does Sobercurious do? You know, this is an episode short and to the point, but I just really want to put this out there and living a more sober, curious life for those who are wanting just to really bring more intentionality into their lives. Like for me, I had a to-do list that wasn't being to-doed. Like I just felt like I kept getting added to, and the main priority of my life was being social or going out or getting dressed up, right? Oh my gosh, especially in college. Like it's just the fun thing to do at our age. Like there's not, quote unquote, not a lot of things for us to do. Well, I want to bust that myth too, because when you cut out alcohol, even if it's just for 30 days, or, you know, my new rule is I only drink 1 to 2 times a month. You're like, what? Yeah, I really believe in setting a non-negotiable limit. So maybe you drink every weekend, Friday, Saturday. Maybe just start with, I want to do just Fridays, or just really plan out the day you want to drink. I know that sounds weird and not as fun and spontaneous, but when it's planned, then the days you're not drinking, you're being proactive as well. But then you're giving yourself that time to live life in a different way, not planned around socially drinking. And so Sobercurious is really just a movement that really just encourages self-reflection and questioning of societal norms around drinking, with the focus on health, wellness, and personal growth. So societal norms, what is a societal norm around drinking? Well, this book I read, I'll put it in the show notes because I didn't grab it before recording this episode. I don't see it on my shelf. It's probably in Wyoming. But she says the societal norm around drinking is gorgeous. It's glamorous. I mean, next time you're at the grocery store, look at how beautiful the bottles are, especially the rosé bottles. I've noticed that they're beautifully pink and floral, and the fonts and the gold. And the shapes. Like, look at how beautiful even just the wine bottles are. Now, if you start going deeper, you'll start seeing the color, the cans, the fun that really is incorporated into drinking. drinking. Societal norms is when you first sit down is, what do you want to drink? Can I get you guys a drink? Like, I was a server all through college. My first job was hosting. The first question asked when you're out is, what can I get you to drink? And it's in our society. And so I just want to say, like, it's not just all your fault, by the way. Like, it's totally ingrained in us to drink. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's sexy. It's the thing to do to meet people. And so, yeah, it's going to be hard because you're going to constantly see it. So my first thing for you when you're exploring Sobercurious, if this is something you guys are wanting to do, I really think this is important for you guys to even know. It's changed my life. I didn't say cut out drinking completely, but there can be some intentionality in when we do drink. So this episode is really just to bring some intentionality. The holidays are coming. I mean, we are in August. This episode is being released in September. Happy September, everybody. But I just want to get the notion going, like, we aren't conformed or we aren't confined to drinking. And that's really what I want to bring to you guys. It's changed my life. It's helped me love my body, choices, no guilt, no hangover. But when I do drink, it's very, very intentional and it's my choice. Right? And so the norms around drinking are just there. And I want to bring that to your attention. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's sexy. But so is not drinking, or so is doing something else outside of drinking. And so it's really just about exploring the role of alcohol in your life and making conscious choices based on your individual preferences and well-being. So for me, I noticed I was drinking every business dinner with James. Every family event, I was drinking with James and the family. And I'm like, And it wasn't until someone very close in my life, I told him I'm not drinking for a while. And it was actually my mother-in-law. I love you, Val, if you're listening. But that comment she made was, well, what are we going to do? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, our whole relationship has been really around drinking, and not in a bad way. Like, we really got close around my wedding, and it's fun. We'd go out for happy hours, try on dresses, and there's champagne. And I mean, every place you went to, they everyone wanted to celebrate with you. But the comment specifically, not even towards my mother-in-law, but that had me start thinking was, what are we going to do? And I was like, how many relationships in my life have I built around socially drinking and having fun? And it's so funny, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm wearing my new favorite shirt with Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, and Paris Hilton, and they're sitting in the car. And it says, Make America Great Again. And the iconic 90s. But they were infamous for their drinking, their partying. But I just love them because we're all on this journey, right? We're all these are young Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears, and Paris Hilton just driving around. I'm sure you guys have seen this shirt. If you're not, go to my YouTube and see my shirt. It's amazing. Or I'll put a link to it below so you guys can look. But we're all on this journey, and it's individual preferences. And yes, I drank a lot in college. Yes, I had a huge pendulum swing of extreme drinking. That was the thing to do. I was understanding my relationship. And so those listening in, please don't judge yourself when you're listening. Say, oh, wow, I didn't even know I could intentionally drink. Where is your gem that you can take away from here? And I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not judging alcoholics. I'm not judging actually anyone. I'm just bringing this as a tool for your toolbox to say, hey, how can I level up my life? How can I step it up a little bit more? How can I bring more intentionality into my life, specifically around drinking? And it kind of is like an oxymoron, being intentional and drinking, right? What? That's not fun. But it is fun. And if you think of it oh, wow, I can choose when I have a drink. So then I don't have guilt. I choose when I want to go have fun, or I choose when I don't want to drink. It's a choice. See, I used to not think I had a choice. I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm socially awkward. I have to have a drink, or there's nothing fun to do. I have to drink. So I didn't feel like I had a choice. And that's what this episode is about. I want to bring power back into your mind. I want to know that you have the power to choose when you want to drink. I'm not saying you don't have to drink, but you have the power to choose. We aren't victims to this, but I also want to bring an awareness piece that, hey, alcohol is showing up in a lot of places. I mean, it's all over the grocery stores. It's by the end of the aisles. So just know that the alcohol is there to bring us in, okay? So I just want to bring in 6 tips. Here's how I've explored Sobercurious. Here's how I've brought an intentionality into my life around drinking just to help me get ahead of it, help me understand that, it is prevalent in society. But if we explore it with this curious mind, exploring sobriety in a curious way, we actually have the choice to choose when we want to drink or just say, whoa, I didn't realize that alcohol is in my life and I don't need it. So this is your choice. So the one thing is I really believe in educating yourself. I used to like the idea of being sober. I still do. I think it's like a lot of people aren't drinking now. And I actually have this theory about drinking, total tangent, but I actually have this theory that, cigarettes are a dying market. Our parents even smoked even more. And it's prevalent in a lot of other countries outside of the US. But my theory around drinking is just like cigarettes. So cigarettes are going away slower and slower. I actually believe that Gen Z and the newer generations aren't going to drink. There's more data. There's more research. I believe the stat is 50% of Gen Z aren't drinking anymore. That's a huge market for non-alcoholic or NA. A huge NA business, a huge NA market is growing. And if you haven't tuned in, I do have an episode on like holistic cocktails. So if you listen to this episode, I'll actually link the holistic cocktails episode below because there's a whole market on how to create that buzz or different cocktails around holistic tinctures that do the same effects as alcohol without having the alcohol. But back to my theory is I believe that just like cigarettes are dying, alcohol is a slowing dying market. And so one is just to educate yourself, research the benefits of sobriety, explore online resources, read books, listen to podcasts, or even watch videos around the Sobercurious movement. Gaining knowledge has really helped me make decisions. I've read several books. It's taken me a ton of courage to just even buy the book. And I want you to know you can go as slow as you want. Maybe this episode is just too much for you, but turn it off then. Save it for later and maybe add in another minute. But educate yourself, read books. I have a whole file. I'll tag my top 2 favorite books around just alcohol and what it does and the awareness and just the science behind it. I can see how it can be intimidating, but educate yourself. Hey everyone, I am really moved to interrupt this episode with something that's been on my mind. You see, I recently received a message from one of our listeners. Let's call him John. He originally reached out to me for marketing advice, but our journey together took an unexpected turn. John shared, "Thank you for helping me experience life better. I appreciate your guidance and your gentle challenges. What a beautiful ride it has been." His words really struck a chord with me because they highlight the incredible impact that coaching can have on our lives, like how it can shift our perspectives and open up new possibilities. So here's the thing. I want to extend a special offer to you, our Hustle for Happiness community. As a gesture of gratitude, I am personally offering a complimentary coaching session. No strings attached, just a chance to explore how coaching can support you in your own journey. So if you're curious or feeling stuck, click the link below to schedule your session whenever you're ready. Let's chat and see how we can make your ride through your life even more beautiful. Thanks for listening and allowing me to share this with you. Now, let's get back to the episode. Another tip, number 2, is connect with like-minded peers. It's much easier to do this with someone else, not alone. I would recommend seeking, online platforms like social media. I follow a ton of accounts around Sobercurious, sobriety. I'm actually going to have someone on the podcast talk about her journey about being sober. And I just want to bring it to you. When you follow those accounts, you're scrolling on social media, you're seeing a community, you're connecting with people. There's Facebook groups out there, local meetups that focus on sobriety, mindfulness, or even wellness. So just engaging with others with similar interests can provide encouragement, support, and even an opportunity to exchange ideas. I connected with so many accounts, asking questions, looking in the comments of what people are saying. I followed the authors of the books I read around sobriety. So you have the choice to just connect. And the most important thing on this tip number 2 is just to connect with people like-minded. I found that I was hanging out with a lot of people that drank. Nothing wrong with that, but I wanted a dimensional group of friends. Sometimes I don't want to drink. Sometimes I just go on my healthy kick about not drinking, and I want to connect with people. I want to go out and maybe it's even just working out, workout classes, connect with like-minded people where you want to see yourself be. So if it's not at the bars every weekend, but that friend that does that 5 a.m. walk, ask her to hang out. Say, can I please come? I notice that when I schedule a workout class the next day after if I do drink, I drink less. Right. So I'm setting myself up for success too. I mentioned this slightly, but number 3 is just experiment with mocktails and non-alcoholic beverages. I had no idea like they were even out there. There is a whole world of non-alcoholic alternatives, and you can have fun and experiment with recipes. There are so many great flavors, ingredients, just sophisticated non-alcoholic drinks. So again, there is a plethora of accounts out there, YouTube videos that teach. I even have a podcast episode about it, and I've linked in like 3 recipes. You can have fun and have different experiences with different things. And this still, the most important thing is we don't want to be left out, right? And so for me, when I have a mocktail, you're included, right? You're not left out, but you're also working towards what you want is, I don't want to drink alcohol, but I still want to be included. So maybe having that mocktail ready, bringing your canned mocktail to a party and being ahead, that really helped me as, one, I eliminated all the alcohol out of the fridge. You know how I used to just keep rosé and Pinot Grigio chilled all the time at the house. I even took it out of my fridge because we had family in town. I took it out right away. Like get the alcohol out of your fridge. Get it out of your, like, out of sight, out of mind. Like I put it downstairs in the basement here in Chicago because I was like, I don't want to see it. Right. And so I have my mocktails all lined in the fridge. And I think just setting yourself up for success, you guys, and being totally open-minded. Oh, it's not the same as a buzz when I have my non-alcoholic drink. Okay, go into the mindset like this is going to be fun. I'm doing something different. Yes, it's going to be weird, but embrace it. Again, it's sober curious. Stay curious through this whole thing. So number 4, and I wrote these based on my experience. This is what really helped me. I mentioned this before. Number 4, engage in mindful activities. We all know the value of mental well-being, and I've learned to embrace mindful practices like meditation, yoga, journaling, or even creative activities. I took a watercolor class. That was super fun. So these activities or these practices can really help cultivate self-awareness, reduce your stress, and overall just enhance our well-being, which can be super helpful when we're in this sober curious journey. Again, these mindful activities are maybe scheduling that workout class the next day after drinking, or just booking more workout classes or taking classes or connecting. You can also overlap some of these tips, like connect with others and do mindful activities. And so then you're going to start meeting people who are in like-mindedness. Like I have found a huge community on Instagram just by following sober curious accounts or sobriety accounts. Doesn't mean I'm 100% sober, but it creates this, I don't know how to explain it. When I see sober things, I don't feel alone because I still like the idea of being sober, but I also want to have a drink here or there. And so I believe in just this balance. If I could preach one thing, it's this balance of if you find yourself doing the same activities every weekend around drinking, or you find yourself drinking at every family event, or like I was, every business dinner, let's mix it up. Let's create some dimension. And sometimes it might be hanging out with certain people or not hanging out with certain people. Or for me, it was just having the confidence to show up to a business dinner and not order a drink or have the habitual habit of ordering a drink. And so these habits keep us where we want. And so what was my biggest problem was I wanted more time in my day. I felt sluggish. I wanted more out of my life. And so I was like, how can I do this? And so number 5, share experiences on social media. It sounds weird, but I want you guys to confess it, profess it, scream it at the top of your lungs, for Christ's sakes, using your social media platform. It truly helped me when I was posting all the time about 75 Hard and my insecurities around drinking. And I shared it, and it really made me feel, 1, accountable for what I was doing, but 2, I also shared my reflections and experiences and learnings through posts and vlogs, and people responded. and they connected with me even more. And they also shared with me that I've been experiencing the same thing too. So there was this community, and we can inspire each other and we can be there for each other. And it's normalizing this concept of sober curious. We're not so alone. And those that have been thinking about, cutting out alcohol for even just a week, that's a big deal for someone who socially drinks on a Friday or Saturday. But believe in yourself. Lean into the idea of this balanced, intentional idea around drinking and not doing it because it's easy or it's comfortable. When I took 6 months off last year, there's definitely some times where I'm like, I came home, it was stressful. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want a glass of wine. And so that thought of like, oh my gosh, it's one habitual, which is why I totally believe in taking out all the alcohol of your fridge and putting in the non-alcoholics. So you still have the idea, like I put these non-alcoholic drinks in a wine glass over ice. Or even when I went out to these dinners, I'd ask for a big old wine glass, a cup of ice, and I'd put sparkling water and lemon to just still feel elevated, to still feel fun and included, which is honestly, I experienced like the hardest thing about not drinking is not being included, not being fun, or people saying, oh, why aren't you drinking? And I'm just going to say for those of you that are afraid of that, it's totally normal. Go slow with yourself. But if someone asks you, why aren't you drinking? Just say, why not? Why are you drinking? What are you drinking for? Like, flip it back on them. Like, I don't know. I totally believe in like, there's nothing wrong with it. But that question is, why are you not drinking is so outdated. And if you're that one that's asking other people, why aren't you drinking? Ask yourself, why are you drinking? It's interesting. All right. And number 6 is explore alternative social activities. Seek out and participate in activities that don't revolve around alcohol. This might include outdoor hikes or walks or fitness classes or art workshops or volunteer work or going to music performances. Diversify your social experiences. This can really allow you to discover new formats of joy and connection. And it sounds similar to, engage in mindful activities, but these are different. So alternative social activities, that's the key here is, maybe you're doing the same social activity of going to the bars, but there are other forms of social activities, workout classes, dancing, ceramics, music, like mix up the type of activity you're doing. That really, really helped me, not keep in the same routine, because when we go to the same bar, we order the same drink, we wear the same thing, so it's a little different. Mindful activities are yoga, breath work, walk. Those aren't super social. So number 6 is explore social activities, different social activities. Push your boundaries a little bit. If you're not a workout class girly or guy, push yourself, try it. Meet new people who are doing that. I found that even if I didn't really have any friends at any of my workout classes, being in a social environment was still just what I needed, just to be included, especially if I wasn't drinking or maybe if I stayed in the night before. I really wanted to get out the next day. And so I just really want to hit home that being sober curious is just really about you trusting in yourself and mixing up your life, being intentional, finding different ways of joy without drinking or with less drinking. And that's what I want you guys to know about this episode, is to just really embrace being sober curious. And it's a personal journey for everyone. And anyone listening to this podcast is just do what works for you. Maybe just listening to this episode was, whoa, this is a total shock for me. The idea of not drinking, or if I feel attacked, maybe journal on it. Maybe journal on some thoughts that came up for you as I spoke about not drinking, or following different accounts, or unfollowing, or, reading a book about not drinking. Like, that's a big deal. So I just want you guys to know that this journey of Sober Curious is tailored not just for one size fits all. It's different for every single person based on your values, your interests, and even your comfort levels. And I just want you guys to know that I am totally here for you. And let me know if any of these worked for you. And I hope you guys have a good September. Happy September. I hope today's episode left you better than when I found you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tune in every Monday to kickstart your week and set your weekly intentions with me. You can find me and HFH on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, or online at heycourtneybrooke.com. I firmly believe in the power of sharing. If you know someone else who would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. And remember, when you work on you, I get to be there.